Princess Glorfa woke each morning to the soft glow of twin suns filtering through tall, arched windows. She loved the gentle light on her round, glossy shoulders, and the way her skin, smooth and pale green, seemed to shine like polished glass. Yet each day she felt the weight of unwelcome eyes. From the moment she rose, the palace halls echoed with whispers. Courtiers in silken robes would pause and stare, their lips curling with silent laughter. Othoria was known across the galaxy for its proud, slender royals. They moved like reeds in the wind, limbs long and proud. Princess Glorfa was different. She was a plump, buoyant form, soft, almost blob-like, with a wide smile and bright, curious eyes. Where others saw her shape as odd, she saw life as an ocean of possibility. But glances and hushed tones left her heart heavy. She dressed each morning in gowns of woven coral silk, embroidered with tiny silver shells. The fabric hugged her round form in gentle folds. Yet no matter how fine the thread or how skilled the tailor, each dress felt like armor she could not wear. In every mirror she saw the truth. The gowns made her look even larger. She sighed, wishing she could hide behind the palace walls forever. Today, however, she could not hide. The emperor, her father, had summoned her to the grand hall. His throne of carved white stone rose above the polished floor, and his voice, deep and booming, filled the chamber. "Glorfa," he said, "you must find a consort by the next moon cycle, or you will be sent to live upon the Exile Islands." Gasps rose from the assembled nobles. The Exile Islands lay far beyond the safety of Othoria's reefs. They were wild, empty lands where few dared to go. For an alien princess, exile meant a life of loneliness. The court had often joked that sending Glorfa away would do them all a favor. But now, her fate lay bare. The soft click of shoes on marble followed her as she left the hall. Her attendants trailed behind, voices low. "She should be grateful," one whispered. "She'll be free of our burdens," another agreed. Glorfa's cheeks burned, but she held her head high. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. That evening she escaped to the palace gardens. Hidden beneath a canopy of tall silver trees, where glowing flowers dripped light like lanterns, she felt safer. The air tasted of salt and sweet nectar. Crystalline ponds reflected the star-bright sky, and gentle breezes whispered through purple ferns. Here she could breathe without prying eyes. Sitting on a smooth stone bench, Glorfa pressed her rounded hands against her chest and closed her eyes. She wished her people could see her not as a joke, but as a daughter, a sister, a heart full of hope. She remembered her mother's voice singing lullabies of distant worlds, told beneath the glow of a moon too far away to touch. She longed for the soft voice that once told her she was loved just as she was. A sudden rustle of leaves made her start. From behind a tall fern stepped a figure in a simple tunic. He was human, tall and lean, with dark hair tied back and kind, eyes that shone in the starlight. Glorfa had seen him before, Kyle, the palace gardener. He was quiet, often working alone, tending seeds and seedlings with gentle care. No one seemed to mind his human origin. Gardeners were invisible at court. Kale paused a few feet away, holding a small pouch. "Princess," he said softly, bowing, his head. "Forgive me for intruding, I brought you something." Glorfa blinked. "For me?" she asked, surprise shining in her eyes. He nodded. "Seeds from Earth's sunflowers. I thought, perhaps you might like to try planting them here." He smiled shyly. "They grow tall and bright where I come from." Her heart lifted. No one had offered her kindness in days. "Thank you," she whispered. She held out her hands. "Would you help me plant them?" Together they knelt by the pond's edge. Black earth from Othoria's gardens lay in neat rows. Kyle showed her how to press each seed gently into the soil, cover it with a thin layer, and pat it down with care. Glorfa's round fingers, so good at pressing sealant into palace cracks, proved perfect for this delicate work. As they planted, Kale spoke of his home. Blue skies, warm winds, and fields filled with golden flowers reaching for the sun. Glorfa told him of Othoria's bubble festivals, where families of her people would launch glowing orbs of gas into the night and watch them dance above the ocean rings. Each story brought laughter and warmth to her chest. When they finished, Kale placed a clear glass dome over the seeds. "This will keep them warm until they sprout," he explained. "I'll return each morning to check on them." Glorfa nodded. "I'd like that," she said. "Thank you, Kyle." As he stood, he brushed a low-hanging branch aside. Daubed on its bark was a small carving. 2 flowers, one tall, one short, side by side. Glorfa's eyes widened. "You carved this?" Kyle ducked his head. "Last week when I first saw you here, I wanted to welcome you." She traced the carving with a finger. No one had ever carved a welcome for her. Her heart fluttered. In a world that saw only her shape, he saw her presence. A soft gong echoed through the garden, signaling the hour of rest. Both rose, and for a moment their hands brushed. Glorfa felt a warm spark. It surprised her. Even as doubts whispered that she was unworthy, Kale's simple friendship shone bright and true. "Good night, Princess," Kale said, turning toward the path. "Good night, Kale," she replied, watching him go. Alone again, she looked at the dome covering the seeds. Inside, tiny cracks of green had already begun to show. Glorfa smiled as she whispered, "Maybe I can grow something new too." Under the twin sun's fading glow, the princess stood tall. For the first time since the Emperor's decree, she felt a small hope stirring in her heart. Perhaps, with friendship and kindness, even the unwanted could find a chance to bloom. Each morning, before the palace gates opened, Princess Glorfa slipped through hidden corridors to the garden's inner sanctum. She carried a small watering device shaped like a crescent moon, filled with dewy morning rain. Beneath the glass dome, the sunflower seeds Kale had planted lay snug in the warm soil. Tiny green shoots pushed up through the earth, reaching for the pale light. Glorfa smiled at the sight of new life. She gently misted the sprouts, careful not to wet their fragile stems too much. "Grow strong," she whispered, as if the plants could hear her voice. The soft hiss of water on metal and the quiet rustle of leaves filled her with calm. A sudden rustle behind her made her turn. Kale stood in the dappled light, basket in hand. "Good morning, Princess," he said, his voice gentle. The sunflower sprouts quivered at his presence, as if greeting him too. "Good morning," Glorfa replied, her cheeks warming. "They're growing well." Kale nodded, setting down his basket. From inside, he brought out a small vial of nutrient solution. "These are special earth nutrients," he said. "They will help the sprouts grow, tall and straight." He knelt beside her and carefully poured a few drops onto the soil. Glorfa watched the droplets vanish into the earth like tiny gifts. "Thank you," she said softly. "I couldn't have done this alone." Kale shook his head. "We do it together," he said. He brushed a loose strand of dark hair from his forehead, and for a moment Glorfa noticed the soft curve of his smile. They worked in easy silence, tending the young plants. The air was thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and salty sea breeze from the nearby ocean rings. Glorfa felt lighter than she had in days. Kyle's kindness was like a gentle tide lifting her spirits. As they finished, Kale stood and wiped his hands on his trousers. "I have something else for you," he said, opening his basket again. Glorfa's eyes lit up as he revealed Earth's bluebell seeds wrapped in a small leaf. "They bloom blue in springtime," he explained. "I thought they might add color to your collection." Glorfa's heart warmed. "They're beautiful," she said. "Let's plant them together." They chose a shaded patch beneath a glowing orchid tree. With Kale's guidance, Glorfa dug small holes in the soft black earth, planting each bluebell seed with care. Afterward, they covered them and watered gently. Under the glass dome, she could already picture the blue flowers nodding in the breeze. Over the next days, Glorfa and Kale met each morning and evening to tend the gardens. Their friendship deepened with each shared task. Kale taught Glorfa how to measure pH levels in soil, using simple strips of reactive paper that changed color. Glorfa laughed when she saw the paper turn bright pink, indicating acidity too high for their plants. Together they adjusted the soil, adding crushed seashells to balance it. In turn, Glorfa taught Kyle about Athoria's native flora. She showed him the spiral fronds of the silver fern, how to coax the glowing night-blooming orchids to open by playing soft music near them, and how to harvest the jelly fruit without harming the plant. Kale listened with fascination, his eyes wide as he tasted the sweet, translucent fruit that popped like bubbles in his mouth. Outside the garden walls, gossip began to spread. Courtiers whispered about the princess's daily absences. She spends all her time with that human, they said. What could a gardener teach a princess? Others scoffed at the idea of bluebells and sunflowers in Athoria's royal gardens. Her mind is as empty as her shape, one noblewoman sneered. Glorfa knew of the whispers. Footsteps hushed. Conversation stopped when she entered a room. At first, the words stung like tiny needles. But each morning with Kale healed her wounds. His calm presence reminded her of the value she brought, her kindness, her curiosity, her bright laugh. One evening, as twin moons rose in the sky, painting the garden in silver light, Glorfa and Kale sat on the stone bench beside the dome. Inside, the sprouts had grown several inches tall, their leaves unfurling like tiny sails. Outside, firefly-like insects danced among the flowers. Kyle turned to her, his expression earnest. You know, he said softly, most people in the court think these experiments are pointless, but I see how your heart guides you. You care for this garden like it is your child. Glorfa looked down at her hands, her round fingers clasped in her lap. I do, she admitted. When I care for these plants, I feel useful. I feel like I belong. Kale's eyes shone. You belong more than anyone, he said. He picked up one of the sunflower sprouts gently and held it to the moonlight. Look how strong it is. It reaches for the light even in darkness. That reminds me of you. Glorfa's breath caught. No one had ever compared her to something strong and hopeful. The cool night air felt warm around her heart. A gentle breeze stirred the petals of the night-blooming orchids, and for a moment, she forgot the imperial decree and the looming threat of exile. Suddenly, footsteps echoed on the gravel path outside the garden gate. Kale straightened, and so did Glorfa's. Smile. It was Mara, Glorfa's closest lady-in-waiting. Your Highness, she said, bowing low. The Emperor requests your presence in the council chamber at once. Glorfa's smile faltered. She rose, brushing dirt from her gown. Thank you, Mara, she said. Mara hesitated, then glanced at Kyle. Are you well, Princess? She asked softly. Glorfa met her gaze. I am, she said firmly. Thank you for caring. Mara nodded and slipped away through the gate. Alone with Kyle, Glorfa felt her shoulders slump. I must go, she said. The council chamber. I do not know what awaits me there. Kyle placed a gentle hand on her arm. You will be fine, he said. Remember what you've built here. He nodded toward the dome where the sprout stood tall. You can grow beauty from nothing. You can do anything. Glorfa took a deep breath and returned his smile, small but determined. Thank you, Kale, she said, for everything. He bowed his head and stepped back. I'll be here when you return, he promised. Clutching her skirts, Glorfa made her way through the gardens, past glowing pools and silver ferns, toward the towering palace. With each step, she felt a growing strength. The court might scorn her, but she had companionship, purpose, and hope. And wherever her path led, she would carry the lessons of the garden in her heart. As the palace doors closed behind her, the first faint stars winked above Athoria's ocean rings. Within the glass dome, the sunflower sprouts and bluebells lifted, their leaves, reaching for the precious light. A promise that even in dark times new life could flourish. And somewhere beyond those walls, a gardener waited, ready to help them grow. The morning light over Athoria's northern shallows was pale and sad. Once a brilliant riot of color, the coral forest there now lay dull and lifeless. Broken branches drifted in the currents, and tiny fish darted away from the bleached coral, like frightened children. The court's biologists had tried every known remedy, but nothing revived the forest. The emperor summoned Princess Glorfa to the grand hall. She stood before her father's throne, the glow of his tall crown lanterns painting her smooth green skin in soft gold. Beside her, Kale bowed respectfully. The emperor's deep voice filled the hall. "Princess Glorfa," he said, "your court has failed to save the northern coral. You will have one chance. If you cannot restore the forest within 3 cycles of the outer moon, you will be exiled." A hush fell over the nobles. 3 cycles, just under a month. Glorfa felt her round heart pound. 3 cycles to heal an entire forest. She remembered Kale's steady eyes and the tiny seedlings reaching for the light under their glass dome. If life could sprout from bare earth, perhaps it could return to these coral ruins. That evening, Kale led Glorfa to a large hangar beside the palace docks. Inside, clear spheres of glass and metal hung from cranes like giant pearls. Engineers busied themselves around sketches of floating domes and nutrient tanks. "These are the biodomes," Kale explained. "They were my idea, based on human marine labs. We can use them to grow coral in controlled conditions." Glorfa ran her fingertip along the curved metal support of the nearest dome. It felt cool and strong under her touch. "What do we need?" she asked. "First, we gather the healthy coral fragments," Kale said. "Then we place them in nurseries inside these domes. We will mimic Earth's mangrove swamps, where water filters slowly and nutrients stay close to the roots." He showed her nutrient tanks filled with a pale blue solution. He carefully added powdered minerals, calcium, magnesium, and trace elements that coral needed. Glorfa watched as the mixture shimmered in the tank lights. "This will feed the coral until it can rebuild its skeleton," Kyle explained. Over the next days, Glorfa worked with the engineers. She learned to attach coral fragments to small ceramic tiles. Her soft, rounded hands proved gentle but firm, pressing each fragment so it would not float away. When she struggled, Kyle guided her fingers without hesitation. In the biodome nurseries, the coral fragments settled on the tiles and began to open their polyps like tiny flowers. Glorfa felt a thrill each morning when she checked the domes and saw new growth. "Look," she called to Kale one dawn, breathless with excitement. "They opened more polyps overnight." Kale smiled, his eyes bright. "They trust you," he said. "They know you care." Word of Glorfa's work reached the court. Some nobles still whispered that her project was foolish. "She cannot even choose a proper spouse," one official huffed. "How can she save a forest?" But others grew curious. A young marine scientist, Lady Rennie, asked to join the effort. She brought samples of local plankton that might serve as food for young coral. Together, she and Glorfa tested different concentrations, watching how the coral fragments reacted. Glorfa found joy in collaboration. She had always felt like an outsider in court, but here, among scientists and engineers, she felt her ideas mattered. She suggested adjusting the dome vents to increase water flow at night, mimicking the ocean's natural rhythm. Kale and Lady Rennie tried it, and the coral responded by growing stronger stalks. As the midpoint of the trial approached, the biodomes held hundreds of healthy coral tiles. The emperor came to inspect the progress. Court nobles gathered on a raised platform beside the hangar. Glorfa stood proudly beside Kale and Lady Rennie. The emperor knelt beside the first dome and touched the glass. "Impressive," he said softly. "The polyps are vibrant." He pressed a small control panel and the dome lights brightened, revealing coral branching thicker than before. The court officials murmured in surprise. One minister crossed his arms and frowned. "This is land-bound work, Your Majesty." "What? Of the ocean itself? We must return the coral to its home." Glorfa stepped forward, voice clear. "That is our next step," she said. "We will transplant the coral back onto the forest ruins. The domes are nurseries. Once the fragments are strong, we will plant them among the broken skeletons." The emperor surveyed her. "Very well, proceed." That night, under a sky of swirling moons, Glorfa and Kale loaded the ceramic tiles onto an open barge. The harbor lights reflected on the water in dancing patterns as the vessel slipped away from the palace docks. Glorfa stood at the bow, the salty breeze lifting her hair. Exile seemed far away in that moment. All she felt was purpose. At the northern shallows, the barge's lamps revealed the bleached forest like ghostly pillars rising from the deep. Glorfa's breath caught. The remains of thousands of coral colonies lay scattered on the seafloor. It was a sad sight, but she did not despair. She glanced at Kyle, who gave her a steady nod. Divers in clear suits slipped into the water, carrying the first batch of coral tiles. Glorfa watched from above, her hands gripping the rail. Each tile, once freed from the dome, was placed gently into a crevice on the seabed. As the divers worked, they offered thumbs-up signs. The tiles stayed in place and tiny polyps waved in the current. The next dawn, Glorfa returned to the shallows in a diving suit of her own design. The suit was sealed with a flexible gelatinous lining, like her own skin, to keep her warm and agile underwater. She entered the water and swam beside the growing reef, guiding the divers to the areas most in need. Under the gentle sway of her glass dome helmet, Glorfa marveled at the colors returning. Soft pinks and purples glowed in the morning light. Small fish flickered around the coral, nibbling at algae. A sense of wonder filled her heart. After 3 cycles of the moon, the Emperor came again, this time to see the reef itself. Glorfa and Kale dove together beneath the surface. The court stood on a glass-bottomed barge looking down into the clear water. When they reached the reef, the Emperor gazed in awe. The coral was back, vibrant and alive. Thick branches jutted up from the seafloor and schools of bright fish swirled among them. Even the skeptical minister was speechless. Glorfa rose to the surface first. Her round face broke into a radiant smile. The court's eyes shone with new respect. She turned to Kale, who was already climbing up the ladder. He helped her, and, for a moment, their hands brushed. Glorfa felt a thrill of joy, proof that her heart, like the coral, could bring life back to a broken world. The Emperor stood beside her on the barge. He laid a hand on her shoulder. "You have proven your worth," he said, "not by shape or title, but by your heart and will." Glorfa bowed her head, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. At her side, Kyle smiled proudly. Around them, the court cheered, and the revived reef glowed beneath the waves, a living testament to what kindness, creativity, and determination could achieve together. The grand feast hall shimmered with light. Tall crystal pillars glowed softly, casting rainbows across banners of deep blue and silver. Nobles in elegant robes drifted through the hall, murmuring in small groups. At the far end, a long table groaned under platters of sweet jelly fruit tarts, spiced seaweed wraps, and fine crystal glasses filled with sparkling moon wine. Princess Glorfa stood at the center of the hall, radiant in a gown of pearlescent silk. Its folds draped around her, round form like gentle waves. Tiny luminescent pearls adorned the neckline, echoing the glow of the twin suns and moons outside. For the first time, the princess felt truly at ease. Her success with the coral forest had earned her the respect of the court. Even the sternest ministers offered bows and polite smiles. Kyle moved among the guests as well, holding Glorfa's handmade fan when she grew warm and whispering kind words in her ear. His simple tunic had been replaced by finely tailored robes of pale green, embroidered with silver corals. He looked as comfortable as he had in the gardens, calm, confident, and devoted entirely to the princess beside him. Lady Rennie, the marine scientist who had aided Glorfa in the biodomes, raised her glass in a toast. "To Princess Glorfa," she announced, voice clear over the hushed crowd, "who showed us that courage and care can restore even the deepest wounds." Applause rippled through the hall. Glorfa smiled and dipped her head. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and something more she could not yet name. The Emperor rose from his seat at the high table. His tall crown lanterns swayed as he lifted his goblet. "Today, my daughter has proved her heart matches her title," he declared. "Othoria is safe because of her wisdom. Let all here celebrate her ingenuity and spirit." A thunder of claps filled the hall. Glorfa glanced at Kale. He bowed deeply, offering her a small bouquet of sea orchids and starlight moss, gifts from the revived reef. She took the flowers, her eyes bright with gratitude. As the banquet continued, music began. Soft flutes, gentle drums, and the distant echo of stringed lutes. Glorfa watched dancers move across the polished floor, their garments swirling like ribbons in a breeze. She longed to join them but hesitated, aware of every gaze. Kale noticed her hesitation. He offered his hand. "May I have this dance, princess?" he asked with a respectful bow. A ripple of surprise ran through the onlookers. Few had ever seen the princess dance in public. She had always shied away. Yet Kale's calm voice and the warmth in his eyes gave her courage. She smiled, placed her hand in his, and let him lead her onto the dance floor. The music swelled as they moved together. Kyle guided her in simple steps, his hand steady on her waist, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. Glorfa laughed, a soft, happy sound as she let go of her worries. The audience watched in respectful silence, then began to clap along with the beat. When the song ended, the hall erupted in cheers. Glorfa's cheeks flushed with joy. She glanced at her father, who nodded proudly. Even the most critical nobles looked pleased. As the evening waned, the emperor called for silence. The crystal pillars dimmed to a soft glow and the music stopped. In the hush, Kale knelt before Glorfa. The crowd gasped. The polished floor caught the light of his glowing eyes as he reached into his robe pocket. Princess Glorfa's heart fluttered. She held her breath as Kale drew forth a simple band of polished seashell silver, set with a single pearl that caught the lantern light. He placed it gently on the open palm of his trembling hand and spoke in a clear, steady voice. "Princess Glorfa, we have grown together through gardens, domes, and restless seas. You've shown me bravery in the face of failure and boundless kindness in a world that so often turns away. You are the brightest light in my life. Will you marry me?" Silence fell like a soft blanket. All eyes turned to the princess. Her breath hitched as tears of joy and surprise filled her eyes. She glanced at her father. The emperor's face glowed with pride and approval. Then she looked at Kale, the gardener, the human soldier, who had become her friend, her partner, perhaps her greatest hope. With a trembling hand, Glorfa lifted the pearl ring from Kale's palm. The hall waited, breathless. She slid the ring onto her rounded alien finger and felt warmth spread through her body, an echo of the gardens they had nurtured and the coral forests they had saved. "Yes," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Kale. I will marry you." A roar of applause and cheers filled the hall. Kyle rose, stepping forward, and they shared a gentle embrace. Nobles wept with happiness, and servants paused in their duties to clap and shout congratulations. Even the musicians began to play a joyful tune once more. The emperor rose to his feet, his voice steady and proud. "Let it be known across Athoria and beyond. Princess Glorfa and Kale, son of Earth, are betrothed." He lifted his goblet high. "May their union bring new hope and friendship between our worlds." Glorfa's eyes filled with tears of joy as she raised her own goblet. "To new beginnings," she toasted, voice ringing through the hall. "To new beginnings," called the crowd. Glasses chimed and moon wine splashed in gentle arcs. As the celebration swirled around them, music, laughter, dancing, Glorfa and Kyle slipped away to the palace balcony. Below, the ocean rings of Othoria glowed in the moonlight, and the first stars of dawn sparkled faintly on the horizon. Kyle turned to her, his eyes tender. "I never imagined I could be here standing by your side," he said softly. "But you showed me that home is where we care for each other." Glorfa touched his cheek, her gelatinous skin cool against his warm hand. "And you showed me that love can grow in the most unlikely places," she replied. "Thank you for believing in me." They stood together, hand in hand, watching the soft glow of twin moons. The court's laughter drifted up from the hall, but in their private world, only the gentle rush of the sea and the promise of tomorrow mattered. Under the moonlit sky, Princess Glorfa and Kale shared a tender kiss, a promise of partnership, of unity between two worlds, and of a future bright with hope. The palace, once a place of whispers and doubt, now echoed with joy. And in that moment, the unwanted alien princess and the humble human soldier became a symbol of change, love, and the beauty of unexpected friendship. Dawn broke gently over Othoria's palace, casting pale pink light through the tall windows. Princess Glorfa awoke in her chambers to the soft hum of servants preparing for the day. She stretched her round arms and smiled as she remembered the events of the night before, the feast, the dance, and Kale's proposal beneath a shower of applause. Now morning light felt like a promise of new beginnings. Her gown for the day was simple but elegant, a flowing robe of sea-green fabric trimmed with silver thread. It echoed the colors of the revived coral reef she had helped restore. A small circlet of polished shells sat atop her head, a gift from Kale, symbolizing their bond between land and sea. As she dressed, her heart fluttered with excitement. Today, she would stand before the people of Othoria, not only as princess but as bride-to-be of a human soldier. In the grand courtyard, scholars, nobles, and common folk gathered beneath fluttering banners. These banners bore both the Othorian emblem, a silver wave, and the earth crest of a rising sun. Musicians tuned soft harps and flutes, and the air, filled with the sweet scent of jellyfruit blossoms brought from the northern shallows. Many had come to celebrate Glorfa's achievements and her upcoming union with Kale. Few had ever witnessed such unity across worlds. The Emperor stood at the head of the courtyard, his crown lanterns glowing softly. Beside him, Lady Rennie represented the sciences, and Elder Murek, the chief court advisor, stood solemnly. At a signal from the Emperor, 2 guards tapped their spears to the polished floor, calling for attention. A hush fell over the crowd. Princess Glorfa stepped onto the marble dais, her soft form illuminated in the early light. She felt a wave of joy as the gathered faces looked up at her with warmth and respect. Kale appeared at the opposite side of the dais, dressed in formal robes of pale green and silver. His hair was neatly tied back, and his gentle smile met hers. Across the marble expanse, the Emperor raised his hand. "Citizens of Othoria," he began, his voice strong yet kind. "We gather today to celebrate not only the renewal of our northern coral forest but also the union of 2 worlds. Princess Glorfa, through her kindness and courage, has proven that our differences make us stronger. And Kale, through his loyalty and love, has shown that humanity can walk beside us as partners." Glorfa felt her cheeks warm as the crowd cheered. She had never felt so accepted, so loved. Kyle stepped forward and bowed before her. Then, in a gesture both simple and profound, he offered his hand. Glorfa placed her hand in his. "By ancient Othorian tradition," the Emperor continued, "we join your hands and your hearts. May you inspire peace and friendship across the stars." He lifted his own hand, and a soft gong sounded from the towers above. A gentle ceremony followed. Kyle placed a ring of braided seagrasses on Glorfa's gelatinous middle finger. In return, she slipped a slender band of earth-forged silver onto his hand. Each ring bore a tiny pearl, a symbol of shared life and hope. As they stood united, the crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Small colored lanterns floated upward, drifting on gentle breezes toward the twin suns above. After the ceremony, a long procession wound through the palace gardens. Glorfa and Kale walked side by side, greeting well-wishers. Children raced ahead to lay petals of coral-colored petals in their path. In the shaded groves, bluebell and sunflower blossoms nodded in greeting, silent witnesses to the friendship that began with a gardener's gift and a princess's grateful heart. When they reached the restored coral-themed pavilion, Glorfa paused by a reflecting pool. The water mirrored her round form and Kyle's lean figure side by side. She looked at him, eyes shining. "I never imagined my life would be so full," she said softly. Kyle lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her fingertips. "You have shown me wonders," he replied. Your mind, your spirit, and your kindness make every day brighter. They continued to a long table set with simple, fresh foods, fruit, nuts, and the first harvest of Othoria's new coral-grown sea vegetables. As they dined, Glorfa caught sight of Lady Rennie presenting the Emperor with a detailed plan. A fleet of floating research stations to study both Earth's and Othoria's ecosystems. Kyle and Glorfa had inspired this collaboration, and soon their united worlds would learn from one another. Evening came with soft lantern light in the gardens. Music played and dancers moved in gentle circles. Glorfa joined them with Kyle at her side. She felt light on her feet as they moved in harmony, her laughter bright against the night air. Around her, guests from distant star systems, envoys from other alien realms, had arrived to witness the union. They too joined the celebration, curious and hopeful. Later, Kale led Glorfa to a quiet balcony overlooking the ocean rings. Moonlight glimmered on the water like scattered diamonds. The soft sound of waves on the palace reef joined the distant music. Kale held Glorfa close. Look at this world, he whispered. It is more beautiful because you stand in it. Glorfa looked out at the rings, then back at him. And you make my world complete, she replied. They shared a gentle kiss under the twin moons. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Glorfa felt the echo of every seed planted, every coral fragment nurtured, and every kind word shared. Her path, from unwanted princess to beloved partner, had been guided by hope and friendship. When they parted, Glorfa rested her head on Kyle's shoulder. Tomorrow, she said, we begin our next adventure. Kyle smiled. Together, we can do anything. As the music swelled below and the lanterns drifted on the night air, Princess Glorfa and Kale looked toward the future. Their union would bridge worlds, inspire cooperation, and prove that love and respect can heal even the deepest wounds. In the years to come, they would build floating research stations, plant gardens on distant moons, and share Othoria's coral with hopeful scientists across the galaxy. But in that moment, under the silvery light of two moons, their greatest achievement was simple. Love that crossed species, friendship that conquered doubt, and a promise of peace carried on a gentle sea breeze. Their story, once a whisper of hope, now blossomed across two worlds, a living proof that even the most unlikely of hearts can find a home in each other's embrace. And so, as the lanterns drifted higher and the stars shone brighter, Princess, Glorfa and Kale stood hand in hand, ready to write the next chapter of a shared destiny, together, forever.